Hi there. I wish to introduce to you a new cult called the Cult of the Sacred Omega. Actually, this is inspired by Babylon 5, a TV show created in the 90s by JMS, and which contains a lot of spiritual motifs, as well as being a overall um, space science fiction opera, as it's been described. But the actual origins of the Omega cult, the sacred Omega cult, a doomsday cult, created after the planet Earth was consigned to 5 years of left of existence due to a plague that was visited upon the Earth to destroy all life on Earth, a passing gift from an invading alien force who didn't win Earth in battle, so they decided to scorch Earth, scorch Earth policy instead. Anyway, the sacred Omega stand is the last. It's the Greek alphabet letter which signifies the end, which, as Jim Morrison said, is our only friend. We are born alone, we live alone, we are alone in our thoughts, and we die alone. And death is a deliverance from this loneliness into nothingness. And that's why the sacred Omega, it's sacred because it is of highest value. The end is of highest value. And the objective of the sacred Omega cult is in fact to ensure by whatever means, but mostly peaceful means, I suppose, that the human species becomes extinct. And to that end, it might be necessary to actually denude life on Earth to the minimum amount. A lot of species will have to go with the human species, which is inevitable, which is a sort of means to an end. But the sacred end is to end the human species. We have a consciousness of sin, and that consciousness directs us to believe that death is just, that death is justice, that we have to pay for our excesses on this earth and our cruelties and our evil. And we must destroy ourselves in order to enter into a state of atonement for everything that we've done. So the scales must be tipped back to balance again, because we have unbalanced the scales, and death is the final balancing of those scales. Hence, I suppose, Omega, the end, is justified. And what does this really? I mean, this is sort of the theoretical basis of the Omega, sacred Omega cult. But how do you actually live within the sacred Omega cult? You must hate authority, especially that of pleasure. You must hate consumerism. You must have a disdain and a contempt for authority, civil authority, religious authority, authority from your parents, authority from schools and institutions that have power over you. You must have disdain for corporations who have power and authority over you. And you must try to get the message of this message out as best you can without getting yourself into trouble with terms and conditions of various social networks and video networks out there, which is actually getting more and more difficult to do. So be very careful about that. Um, you need to, but the point about hating authority of pleasure is that pleasure is the cornerstone of consumption, and consumption is the cornerstone of all the excesses of the human race, for which death is just payment. But as an individual, if you disdain pleasure and you deny the authority of pleasure, I mean, you can't help wanting to stimulate the pleasure centers of the brain. We're hardwired for that. But you can try your best and you will fail many times, by the way. You try your best not to be governed by authority, by wanting things and having things and holding on to the things that you have and having more of what you want. You must you must do away with that, with those thoughts. Like, you got to be free of those thoughts. And most of all, you've got to disdain the authority of the law and order. You must obey the laws only of your conscience and not of any particular land or community that you find yourself born into. Eat vegan as best you possibly can, I should say, because it's very difficult to actually lead a vegan lifestyle. Although when I started being a vegan in the 1980s, it was really, really difficult. And before that, I suppose when the vegans started in 1944, Vegan Society, it was even more difficult to be a vegan then. But now it's actually pretty damn easy to be a vegan. But when it comes to shoes and, I don't know, clothes and things, I suppose it's a bit more problematic. But if you reduce the amount of dairy and meat products in your diet and in your lifestyle, reduce your dependence on them at the very least, then this will help a long way, go a long way to reducing the impact that you have on this planet, which is about the only thing that you can do as an individual. And I think that religions appeal to individuals. We cannot really do very much collectively against the machine that is the human race, a blind, monstrous, insane machine that just goes on and on and on, grinding on, consuming and destroying everything in its place. Um, but you must also uh, so you've got to, in respect of living in a minimum way, you must get rid of all ambition. Ambition is the root of all evil. People want more of something, or they want to become something better than them they are now. Give that up completely. And I've added here, live on the minimum wage. So you don't pay taxes and buy stuff from charity shops so you don't pay VAT on luxury goods, don't have luxury goods. Live in a minimalist, or not minimal way, rather than minimalist. That's a school of art. But you must live in a minimal way. And then finally, you must not have babies. You can adopt children if you so wish, or foster children who don't have parents and who are in need of care, rather than let them rot away in an institution somewhere, or in care homes where they might get sexually abused and things like that, or cruelly treated or something, and nobody knows about it. So it'd be a good idea to foster children and to adopt children. Although this is very difficult to adopt children, you've got to be like, well, you've got to sort of be gay and a pedophile in order to get to adopt children nowadays. Anyway, but we'll let that pass. I digress. Anyway, the thing in it is you mustn't have babies of your own. You mustn't have progeny. You mustn't get together with a member of the opposite sex in order to have children. I mean, it's better, really, really, not to have sex at all, actually, and not to get together with either person of the same sex or a person of the opposite sex, in fact, and not really have anything to do with sex. I mean, hate the authority of pleasure, and sex is pleasurable. So if you hate the authority of sexual pleasure and the desire for sex, then you'll go a long way to living a life which is not only going to be ethically viable, but also means that you don't contribute to the suffering of future persons and to the suffering that future persons cause to other sentient beings. So that's why don't have babies is really, really the cornerstone of the cult of sacred omega. It's something which you need to really seriously think about. And people say to me, well, what about when you get old? You know, you've got no family to look after you when you're old. And I think this is very true of developing world countries, which is why people from developing world countries, and including people that were originally from developing world countries, despise anybody that says don't have babies, because they feel that the family is the unit that will look after people when they become old and infirm. I was going to put here, kill yourself at 75. But as the song says, I'm sick of living, but I'm afeard of dying. It's very difficult to actually kill yourself. And although people are killing themselves gradually, I suppose, through various pleasure inducing habits that they have. And I suppose these habits, when they are on the collective level, are certainly contributing to the end of humanity. So, in a way, not all the points that I present here are necessarily negative. Like pleasure-seeking persons are not altogether a negative thing if they are, in their pursuit of pleasure, going to contribute to the end of the human species. I wouldn't say, and I've got to be careful about saying about suicide because I'll get thrown off YouTube if I start trying to inducing you to, or suggesting to you commit suicide, because I think that's against their terms and conditions. And God knows we shouldn't violate those terms and conditions, should we now? Anyway, I think as far as God is concerned, the God who created this world is probably doesn't exist. There isn't any God. But if the God does exist, then to that stupid creator God. That's all I can say and rasp about. That's all I have. My attitude to this creator God is. And so you may use this information, you may take it down, you may distribute it in any way you wish. You can take any of these points that I presented in this video and run with them as far as you like. Um, I suppose I was even going to say that you should try and sow dissension, which will lead to nuclear war and nuclear Armageddon. But probably that's against the terms and conditions of YouTube as well. So I suppose I better not say that. I don't recommend that either. But that's going a little bit too negative. I don't think the sacred Omega cult is necessarily a doomsday cult in the sense that either we're going to kill each other or kill ourselves or kill everybody else around us in our communities. I really don't think that will do any good. That's literally like throwing a little pebble into the ocean to do these kind of things. What really matters is information, and if you can get this information out to people that they should not have babies, and that they should lead a minimal life, and that they should disdain or go against the authority of pleasure, and that they should eat vegan as far as possibly can, as far as practicable. And they also should reflect on the fact and believe that death is just, and that this extinction of the human species is a good thing and not a bad thing. Even though I suppose the extinction of hundreds of other species of animals um, to that end is regrettable, but probably necessary. But at any rate, none of these sort of things like nuclear Armageddon or would be necessary if, in fact, people just stopped breeding, and we looked after the children that already have in our community that have no parents, for example, and that wouldn't so that even have no children is not particularly a negative statement to make. if you elect to have other people's children instead of your own. So even that is not a negative statement. In fact, none of these points that are presented here are negative doomsday cult points. In fact, they are actually positive affirmations. I think they are realistic affirmations. They're existentially, that is to say that they conform with a rational view of existence, rather than some sort of metaphysical gobbledygook about some sort of god or angel that came to me and said I had to write all this down and distribute it to you. This all comes from my own reason, my own rational ideas, taking all data into account, and looking at life in the round. So please be free and feel free to distribute this information in any way you want. And if you want to set up a sacred Omega cult in your local area, get people to join and discuss these points and help people to live the life that I have suggested for members of this cult in your local area, then please do so on that level as well. So thank you very much for watching this presentation, and I hope you have a good day.